Welcome back to another Spirit Island video. In this video, we're going to be continuing our series looking at the different spirits and problems in the spirits design, as well as some of the changes that I would make for those spirits so that they are more enjoyable for myself. We've covered lightning, shadows, and earth. The final spirit is going to be river as we move across these low complexities. Now, as I've mentioned in the previous videos, I love Earth, I love Lightning, and I also enjoy playing River. And actually, River is the one spirit of the three that I've played the most. I play River a lot into single six. I like the matchups into pretty much everything. Even England isn't even that bad. Um, and then the combo potential with River is off the charts. So problems with the spirit. So River, it has really three major challenges. The first challenge is the place track is just so much stronger than the energy track. The second is the innate, and this innate is very powerful, especially because a reclaim loop can easily be established to hit this innate. Now, in Spirit Island, when you're trying to optimize everything, uh, the goal really is to create a reclaim loop that you can reach, and you just want to enter that reclaim loop and profit off of it. Every spirit wants to do that. Doesn't matter what spirit you're playing, that is really the goal. Now, some spirits enter the reclaim loop a lot earlier than others, while others just never are able to, just because of the spirit's power. River is one of those spirits that can easily enter the reclaim loop. And the reclaim loop is just playing your four cards. So when you play these four cards here, what ends up happening is you're able to max out your innate, and this innate is going to do 2 damage to every invader in a land. So when you combo this damage with your flash floods, which is going to do an extra 1 or 2 damage, it essentially clears out an entire land. Now it doesn't always do that, but a lot of times it does, and that is good enough to beat a lot of single six adversaries. Now, why is this reclaim loop so common? It's because of this reclaim option that gives you an energy. You have an energy off of tracks, and then you gain an energy off of River's Bounty. So that's going to be 3 energy, and then your hand costs 3. And I've kind of like hammered this point home across like many's and many's of videos on my channel. This is a very common build with River. Essentially, you choose this option. You choose this option. So you first go to, let me showcase it here for anyone that is newer to the game. You choose your second growth option, you go G2 bottom bottom, you G2 bottom bottom, and then you reclaim, and then turn 4 you G2 bottom bottom, and that gets you to that 5 plays. And it turns out that this tempo, it's right before the adversaries really kick off, so a lot of times you're able to just reclaim loop this innate and just completely destroy the invaders. So that's like the second problem. And then the third problem is Boon of Vigor. And this card is completely cracked. So it's a fast power, it's targeting a spirit. It says if you target yourself, you gain energy. If you target another spirit, they gain 1 energy per power card played this turn. And this is the part that's really overpowered. As you guys saw in my 6-6 series, I really was able to utilize this card to its maximum effectiveness when comboed with lightning. So we talked about the different problems with the spirit. So how do we fix those problems? How do we make the spirit a little bit improved? Now, I actually think River's pretty close. Personally, let's actually first address the cards first. So I actually really like Boon of Vigor how it is. I know it is overpowered, but when it's overpowered is only when you're targeting those high card play spirits. Because the main change that a lot of players recommend with this is they just say, well, scrap this bottom part and just say, or they just cap it at 3. So really, at most, this card is giving you 3 energy. I think that's just kind of boring. I think it's okay to have powerful support cards. I think it's okay to have powerful effects. Every player that I see that plays River, every new player that plays River and finds the combo with Lightning and allows Lightning to reach the 6 plays, and then playing Boon of Vigor to give Lightning 6 energy, they feel like a freaking genius. And it's just seeing their joy and how much excitement they have when they find that low complexity combo. I think is just it's worth the fact that this card is overpowered. I think it's okay for there to be things overpowered in Spirit Island, and I think that's like as I've played more, I guess I've played more of Spirit Island, and also I've just understand game design in general. Um, really there's this push and pull between what's truly balanced and also what's fun. And sometimes the overpowered stuff is unfun, and that's okay. And I think this is an example of something being overpowered and also being okay. So I'd like to keep Bundesliga exactly the same as is, and I would like to adjust some of the other problems with the spirit. Um, so looking at the other power cards, I actually think these power cards are pretty much perfect. Like Wash Away is a little bit too good, but I think it's fine. Flash Flood's a little bit too weak, but it's also okay on theme. And then there's River's Bounty, which is like this okay-ish card. It doesn't really have any synergy with the kit, really, but it allows you to kind of combo with other spirits. So I really like love the four cards, and I wouldn't change any of this. So I'd leave these four cards as is. Now, the actual changes to the spirit. Let's look at the growth options. We have the energy here. We also have these two different growth options. The first change that I would make is I would look to get rid of the energy off of Reclaim. Um, that would significantly hurt the Reclaim loop power. So, as I mentioned in that Reclaim loop build, you pretty much have to G2, G2, G1, and then G2. So, you're reaching this on turn 4. If you get rid of the energy off of Reclaim, you're not able to access this Reclaim loop. Well, you could still do this, but you're going to have one less energy, so you only can play your cards and do this once. But then after that, in order to sustain the Reclaim loop, you really need to grow off of top track, or you need to take Boon of Vigor for yourself. And losing Boon of Vigor, like 1 energy for yourself, is much worse than 5 energy or 3 energy to the team. So it's a significant setback. So I think removing the energy off Reclaim is the first change I would make with the Spirit. Now, I think what I would like to do is also give an energy off of G3. So really with River, you never see G3 taken. So I think by boosting it just a little bit here, I think this can go a long way to making the Spirit a little bit more, making this growth option a little bit more interesting instead of the G2 always being chosen. This would be my first two changes. The next changes would be looking at the tracks. I think the tracks are pretty solid. I think top track needs some elements, so I think this too should be a water. This dead space. So essentially, by adding a water here, it means if you play a single sun water card, you'll hit the first tier of this threshold, which I think is pretty reasonable. It also enables stuff like if you're growing, let's put our cards like this, our presence like this. You could do something like G2 top top, and then you could do something like G2 top bottom, and then G2. Actually, no, you could do. It's probably better like this. So G2 top top, G2 bottom bottom. So turn 1, you're playing 1 card. You're hitting this innate. Turn 2, you're going to play 2 cards. You possibly could hit this innate if you play your other 2 sun waters. And then it opens you up to if you want to maybe G3, maybe instead you G3 bottom instead. I think the water just adds a lot to the spirit, especially in the early turns, rather than forcing the player to go straight bottom track. And then I think this 4 should be a sun. So very similar to what I did with lightning, where I added 2 elements off top track into these little dead spots. And I think that's pretty reasonable. I think having the tracks end at 5/5, I think that's also pretty fair as well. I actually like this dead space here on 2. I don't think this should be anything. Just because this 2, like River really gets a huge boost when it gets to this 3 reclaim 4 or 5. So I think having this dead space is fine. You might be able to argue you could put like a secondary element here, like maybe Earth, but I really don't think. I think that at that point you're reaching like the bloat state, and I think there's a good balance between this. And like I think Sun is another example where like this 1 feels bad turn like the first turn, but then you have so much value across this bottom track. And I think that's something that we're able to do here with River. I think if we pull up like the horizons, I don't think there's really any dead spots. I know, I guess there is a dead spot here with Rising Heat. And I think this is also a reasonable dead spot. So this is the changes that I would do to the tracks. Now, this innate, this is actually something that I would completely rework, as in I would just adjust the thresholds. So I think I would leave this threshold the same, but I would get rid of this effect here, and I would write as so instead 2 damage, push up to 3 invader 3 things. I would have this read you could probably just say instead, and I would do 4 damage, and then I would say push a 5 Explorer's Town. So still a very powerful effect. It is replacing the second tier, and then I would add a final tier here that would read 3 Sun. It would read 3 Sun, 5 Water, 1 Earth. Go. And then this would basically be this here, so it'd be 2 damage. It'd be instead 2 damage. So once again, instead 2 damage to all invaders. So the idea is this threshold is getting pushed down 1 tier and it's requiring 5 water. This 5 water is huge because it means it forces you to get to 5 plays to get to it, and it forces that card to be a water card. It still allows you to reclaim, but like it's a huge power boost or a huge power decrease if this is water, because part of the power of Current River is you're playing these 4 cards and then you have a 5th card play that can be a flex spot. And a lot of times that flex spot is like a support card or a defense card. So like, okay, now this card is like Carapace Land, right? So like now we're talking like a defensive card, right? Carapace Land. So like now you have this defense card, or maybe you found what is it? Gift of Living Energy, right? Or Twin Days, right? So now you want to do Twin Days for 2 Boon of Vigors, or you want to do Gift of Constancy. So there's a lot of these other cards that are not water. Now, of course, there are some really good waters. But my point is that by making it 5 water, if you want to play those off element cards, you're not hitting this overpowered, this really not overpowered, but this powerful innate. And that's also where having this water up top track still kind of works, because okay, well maybe you still want to get to that point that I was mentioning earlier, in which case that forces you to kind of grab the water up top. So I've basically neutered the reclaim loop twice by not only requiring this 2 damage to every invader to require 5 water, as well as I've removed the energy off of reclaim. Now you could still in theory reach that reclaim loop potential, but that would require you to essentially take an extra G2, and you would need to reach this state here, and then it's essentially the exact same as that we're existing, that we currently have, right? So you're having a 2 energy economy, which is essentially equivalent to if you're reclaiming, gaining an energy, and then you have the water, which is equivalent of this. So hopefully that makes sense. So like you could still technically reclaim at this point, but this is 1 tempo behind, which is quite massive in the game. And I think a lot of times I don't think you're not able to afford that turn off, because right now things are already pretty tight with the entering the reclaim loop. So just to recap the changes I would make, I would add 2 elements off top track, and that would help facilitate these innates better, especially if you're going towards those major builds. I'd remove the energy off of reclaim. I would add an energy onto G3, and then I would adjust the 2 these thresholds here. I'm not entirely sure how balanced this second threshold is. It might be way too strong. 4 damage plus the pushing 5 things, but I would have to play test that. When I say too strong, I mean it's still weaker than the 2 damage to everything, but I would have to kind of play test it and to see how it would play out. I really love leaving the Reclaim 1 on tracks, just because this is the low complexity spirit that has that, and it helps ease the players into that. As I mentioned earlier, I also love the power cards. I wouldn't change any of them, so this would be the changes I would make. Oh, and special rule. I think the special rule is fine. I think it's kind of boring, but I think it's reasonable, especially when it's being a low complex spirit. Okay, let's take a look at the aspects here. So river travel, this is just a complete upgrade over base river. So all of these changes I mentioned here, I would keep them the same for travel. And the main reason is because base river and travel play fundamentally the exact same. It's just travel has a couple more actions, but those actions aren't dramatically increasing the power. So that's that. Sunshine. Sunshine is going to get rid of a Boon of Vigor, as you just saw, completely vanish from my hand, and I probably can't find it now. So Sunshine is going to give you a second innate, and essentially what this is meant to do is to try to make sure that you don't utilize that overpowered Boon of Vigor. But Sunshine is one of the worst aspects in the game because you're the only spirit that starts with a hand of 3 cards. The developers recognize that that is a huge nerf to just how the spirit functions. And so my change with Sunshine would be all of the same changes here, except I would also give the spirit a minor card from the minor deck, or I'd custom make a card, whatever's easier. So some of the cards I would look at, so I would stay away from like a 0 cost card like Constant Currents. I'd stay away from. I would look to like. I would also look like Ambushes is probably another card I would not consider. Um, I'm not sure exactly the card that I would give Sunshine. I would give it some water card, but I'm not exactly sure. The one that I was considering was, where was it? It's actually kind of lame. A Song of Sanctity, a Sun Water card, but there's plenty of water cards. I would look to give one of them to River, and maybe Light Calls Like would be a card to pick from. But I would add a 4th card here in addition to all of the changes. And then of course there's Haven. Haven, I would probably leave everything the same, or all of the changes that I made here. I'd leave the same for Haven. Remember, Haven is getting rid of this innate, but everything else I think is pretty reasonable to be left alone. Now, there is one other thing that I would like to talk about, and is just a custom aspect that I was kind of theory crafting. Just I thought was an interesting idea, and the point would be to kind of get rid of this special rule. And it's a similar concept to travel, and I would I would write it as like movement through the river, or some name. I haven't really thought about the name, but the idea behind it is two special rules. So presents that are adjacent to 2 presents count as sacred sites. So the for you, so if you had something like this, so all of these presents are all adjacent to 2 presents, so they're all sacred sites. And then the second thing on it would be whenever pieces are pushed into your lands, you can move them across any of your connected adjacent lands instead of the land moved to. I'm sure there's a better way to word it, but in theory, the idea is if you had something like this, and you used wash away here, and you moved them to this land, because these lands are all connected, you can actually move them to any of these lands instead. Now, it has to be lands that are connected. The whole point is you're moving invaders down your river, and that would obviously replace the special rule. This is, like I said, what I've theory crafted. I'm not like the sacred site rule that might require it to be 3 instead of 2 presents. I'm not sure. Moving invaders or Dahan into your lands and being able to like completely mobilize them, I think is something pretty cool, and would like to someday playtest that. So if you like this video, like and subscribe. The next 2 spirits on my list are going to be Thunder Speaker and Green, and I have some cool ideas for Thunder Speaker that I have theory crafted, and a couple for Green as well.